Senior training specialist at Marathon Petroleum, and so we're going to get to hear about transforming workplace development from the energy perspective. So give it up to Keith.
Good afternoon. Thanks for coming. And welcome to the case study, Transforming Workforce Development in Energy with XR. So before we start, I need to give you a perspective that you're going to hear from. I am a training specialist, so my job is to support those field technicians, whether they be the skilled craft or the operations. So you're going to hear a perspective that while we transform and make our way from maybe older technology into VR and things like that, that we'll show you the process that we're in. Are we where we want to be? No, because I think the end goal is to help those out in the field to do their job safely and as well as they can. So let's just start. So this case, some of the things, the VR and AR on-demand training, not only providing training, whether that be kind of an instructor led within the XR environment. I mean, we use smart helmets, we have VR programs, and or whatever it is. Now, we also have VR training for dangerous situations. So you're going to see towards the end, we'll play you a little clip of actual VR environment using fire extinguishers on a truck fire. So we don't want that to happen. You know, we would rather not have brake fires on rigs and engine fires and things like that, but we also know that happens at times. So we provide that training, and it's about the fire extinguisher, and you'll see that as we go through this. And then, of course, using VR to facilitate the remote training. So we're nationwide, Marathon Petroleum from coast to coast. So we're trying to integrate, we're trying to get multiple, singular platforms to address certain things. Now, you're going to see us, and during the presentation, you're going to see some 3D modeling that we use. We use the videos and how maybe each one of those are a certain position or they meet the need. So really it is about, if it works for the end goal and we see improvements in the operations and we see engagement, then we'll see we're good with that. Now, can it, just like the title says, transform? Yes, it can transform. But I'm just going to share with you where we're at. So this first one, we're going to just look at a clip, and there won't be any audio. It'll be me kind of talking through it a little bit, but kind of an overview. We're going to show some augmented reality with smart helmets, how it's got transformed into a VR environment. We're going to show you some 3D, and then we'll break it down as we go a little bit. But let's just start taking a look at kind of the overview of the augmented reality. And the first one you're going to see is, here's a smart helmet that we've used. And so we're looking at a particular piece of equipment, and all of a sudden it's transformed into the VR through a third-party vendor that we work with. But really, before the third-party vendor gets that information, we have some in-house 3D drawings, which can come from your CAD drawings, things like that. So it's put to use there, and then that's passed on to the VR manufacturers, third party. And we work with them. You can see here the login for the VR as we continue to go through. This is kind of a MCC. This is a simulation where you can go out and you can see the arrows and shapes going through the pipes and the valves you can turn. And here you can stick your head inside of a motor. And if you know that legend, you can see how it's interacting. The processes are going through there. And then we've built some platforms in the VR space just so you can see it at a different angle. So, and here you're just seeing some technicians trying this out, going through it. And then we're back to the panel. You can just roam, or we have some scenarios. We looked at work order systems, breakdowns, and said, you know, what are the troubleshooting things? I like this little clip right here because you can see we started in September of 2019. This is a loading rack. You can see how we started. And within a few months, you can see the difference in the graphics, a little more detail. Instead of looking at controllers with your hands, you're looking at gloves. So we're seeing that. You're seeing some instructions, some billboards pop up on the updated version. So we continue every so often to update those. And then we're just back in the VR with this unit, and we're just showing the multiplayer right here. So it's just an example, kind of an overview of what we've been doing. So now let's focus on really the 3D modeling that we've went into. You know, you have those, and it's a matter of putting them together. We have some in-house folks that have kind of learned on their own how to do this. And here's an example. We have this injector. And when we did this particular one, one of the field training specialists that does some instructions at the training center, when he's seen this 3D model, because these are small gears in there that you can see, I won't go into too much more detail, but he said, man, if I had that, it would take 45 minutes off of my instruction time in a classroom. Just so I can show it, because it is so small I need to show it individually, and now I can put it up on a screen and collectively, and he was just saying, it's such a time saving. So there's a cost reduction. Here you see a rail car that we've gotten, and here in a minute we'll look at the virtual environment in which this rail car, but it's just a 3D model that we're working with. And it's one of those things that we have found in our experience is that if we can provide a 3D model to a third-party virtual manufacturer or vendor, it will shorten your time approximately, I'm going to say half. By here's what we want, here's the 3D model, please put it in a virtual environment for us. They do that, the cost is reduced, the time frame is reduced, so you can, you know, nobody's going to argue with that. Nobody at all. So the next part we want to show you is kind of videos on demand. Not only do we want to provide instruction with this, we want a reference item that after instruction's done, they still have a place, they could go back to it. I would like to look at that again, just to, you know, rehash it a little bit. Or sometimes we like to call it, hey, it's just-in-time training. We need it when we need it. I'm ready to go. You're gonna see this. This is a control valve that's out on the bench. We ask our technicians to be able to repair one of these. So we have one of our field training specialists going through it. And you can see we're using kind of the 3D modeling, just showing how he's going through this particular one, the 3D model showing, okay, here we go. We're gonna take the lid off there, and then you're gonna see this expand like you can see it in 3D. So once again, I think the lessons learned for us is, hey, if we can get this, and we're still using this. When we showed this to the technicians, they just said, thank you. This is great. Now, is it the end of it all? I don't know, but right now, you know what? It helps them do their job, do it more safely, and to perform the task. So you're just seeing him, you know, you don't see the tool in the 3D drawing, but you see him using it. And of course, he's kind of given some instructions as he goes through here. And hey, look, make sure this isn't worn. And you can see we've just did a little video editing, basically, and putting some different things and given that checklist. Sometimes, you have procedures, policies, you have a list of items you want to do. So we've just listed some of those, and then see how it just expands in that 3D format, and he's doing the same thing. And what I like about this is, as you look at the video, it's not always just as smooth as that 3D, the 3D object comes apart. There's some, hey, it gets stuck. There's a reason why you're repairing it, and it could be along this particular piece. And you can see, hey, we zoomed in. Don't forget about this piece around that shaft. Make sure you pay attention. That's where you've seen that zoom in. You can see him taking it apart. Here we go, that sleeve. He's laying things out so he knows that I got to go in reverse order where I put things. And, making sure this is in good shape. And then we're just reviewing that. So, it's just something that we have found that works. Now, is it the last thing we're going to do? Are we going to stop? No, we call it check and adjust. Let's check it. Let's adjust if we need to. So hands-on observation. So we also have remote where we perform evaluations on technicians. This is an actual remote. You won't be able to hear the sound, but there's somebody in Findlay, Ohio, evaluating somebody in Phoenix, Arizona by using the virtual reality of that rail car that we've seen in 3D a few moments ago. And you're going to see there's actually 3 of them, which will be at kind of end at this clip. But they're actually talking through. There's a checklist. This is for DOT inspection, so they need to make sure, hey, you understand this part of the rail car. You understand this, and so they're sitting here for a moment, and then you can see where it can move to a different spot. And hey, we're looking at the rails to make sure we have this part, and it just continues on. So it's this evaluation and what we consider to kind of the stamp of approval that technician knows. That's part of their job to understand that task. And then you can see they go through the stenciling, and there's actually 3 cars, 3 different rails, 3 different cars. We have dents in some, we have mislabeled things, we have graffiti on some, and so it's just giving you an example of that VR environment. So as we continue on, I call it the journey, because we're not there. I'm not going to pretend we're there. We're trying to find things that work. We have found the new technology, this XR, this new virtual environment. Yes, do we have some headsets? Yeah, we've got about 6 that we use for demonstrations. What we've found is multi-platform really works. So our vendor we work with also works on their laptops, because most have accessibility to their laptops. It's a little clunkier using keystrokes than it is putting a helmet on and using the controllers, but some of those hurdles, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail of the hurdles, because I think we've heard it all week that just getting through access with cybersecurity and kind of the other IT issues of the corporation can be a challenge. And you understand that we need cybersecurity. I'm not saying that. I'm saying sometimes just working it out, it takes time to get the right person, the right people in the room. And so that's one of the hurdles in the process. Lessons learned in some of the equipment that we've used, we have found we really got the scope of the process is with the one that you've seen kind of with the arrows with the different shapes. we thought we just need to teach the basic process. We don't want to give them temperatures, pressures, things like that, flows through there. We want them to know the process. And probably lessons learned, we probably spent 9 to 10 months and we kept nitpicking it. Yeah, the process is there, but hey, can we have this? Well, sure you can. Can we have this? Oh, it's not ready yet. We show it to an SME. Well, you know, if you're going to show this, you need to have this. So I would say lesson learned for us is treat it like an iPhone. Version 2's coming in 6 to 12 months. Make you a list, work with it, and just keep updating it. And so I think the lessons learned is benefits, or you know, getting that to a good place. The benefits, the remote, really, I mean, we're not the only ones. I know this is a community problem, not even a community, industry-wide, different industries. How do I connect, whether that's training, whether in our particular case, evaluations, whatever that is, how do we manage the distance? So I think using VR has proven to be helpful for us. Now, current projects, we talked about the dangerous situations before, because a lot of times we like to categorize things as high impact, low frequency. So what items do we have, or tasks that we need to do, repairs that we need to make that don't happen very often? We don't want them to happen, but they will eventually happen if it's not taken care of. So we try to do our best to keep the maintenance up, but I think you know, we want to focus and give somebody, just like we talked, just in time, however you would like to call the training, but give them a reference they can go to. Gosh, I haven't done this in 10 months. I need something just to remind me what the process is before I start going out and doing it. Future VR goals for us. So I'm in the terminal organization, so we have built a few pieces of equipment within a terminal. We've seen the loading rack where we load trucks, and really our goal is to have a virtual terminal. Tanks, live tanks with level indicators, you know, all the valves, and showing the flows and how to line those things up and make sure it gets to the spots we want them to go. So I'm going to have one more video that I would like to show you, and it is the fire extinguisher, but it's talking about those dangerous situations. So I'm going to show you a clip of what that may look like. So we have just the audio is going. Sorry, we don't have it right this minute, so I'll just talk through it. So really we have someone just, hey, make sure you do this. Hey, there's fires. We know it's not an intentional thing, but we want to, you know, be prepared, where to get it. So now there's a fire going to start. Here you go, you see it. Use the pass method. Pull the pin, aim, squeeze, and sweep. And so you pick up the extinguisher, you're walking over to it. Okay, we're gonna start sweeping. It's starting to build a little bit. As we go through, the VR tells us, okay, here in a second, the fire's been put out. But not all fires behave like we would like them to. They don't always stay out. So this particular instance, we have, hey, it reignites. You've used most of your extinguisher. It's time to get out. And don't turn your back on the fire, and remove yourself. So that's kind of an example of what we have, an overview. What questions do you have, or what comments do you have?
I have a question about that last video. What happens if you don't get out? Like you You just keep using the fire extinguisher.
Well, the fire extinguisher only lasts for about 30 to 40 seconds.
Sure.
Just like, well, we have a 35-pound, and that's the average. Yeah, we've timed it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Are you pulling any analytics out of it using either XAPI or any other ways to confirm how long it takes to put out the fire or how close the incident to the fire?
Not at this time. The focus was because what we originally have done in the past is, hey, we're going to go to kind of the fire school. Let's go to the refining or this area where they can start the pit on fire. They can start a pump on, and then we've got 30 people lined up and they're going in teams and we got people helping them. And then we've got somebody in the back refilling the agent and putting the cap back on. And it is just a huge savings, because the real purpose, I think, and I think we need to develop this, that we want to teach the pass method. Grab it, pull the pin, squeeze, sweep, aim at the base of the fire. In this fire, if you don't aim at the base and you don't do the sweeping, the fire doesn't go out. So, but good question. Thank you. Not yet. It may be, we're progressing. There you go, we're progressing. Anybody else? Yes?
Did you have any kickback from your workforce on using any of this, and so how did you
Thank you for that question, because it just reminded me I forgot to mention something. Is that earlier, thank you. And so when we had the one unit, it was actually, I'd worked in the field with the operators for probably 5 years. The number one thing, there's not a close second, there's nothing. They go, when can we have training for this piece of equipment? Because if that equipment doesn't run, we can't load trucks and we don't make money. So when we came out with the headsets, of course, we started just with a couple, and then we got a couple more later on, and a couple more, as budget allows. And so it has helped. I'm not saying it's the sole solution, because we have some training centers, and actually what we do and what we found to be very successful is that we introduce this in kind of a class using the laptop, and they can see, hey, here's the process, we talk through it, and then we have an actual unit that we're running water through, basically, that they go out and they put their hands on it. So in this particular case, I'm not saying in every case, but in this particular case, we have found that when you take someone, introduce them to the concept, get them used to the process, and then say, because it's a lot different watching arrows go through and starting to understand that, and then you go out to pipe that's all painted white and you see nothing. And so then it's like, okay, what you've learned, let's put it into application, let's identify them, let's run it, let's start doing some troubleshooting. So, yeah, but it's been received well in combination with having that unit as a training prop. Has really, in that combination, has really worked well for us. Yes. You're welcome. Anyone else? Okay. Yeah, I'm more than if you see me and you want to chat, please do so. But thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Keith. Those are very cool use cases. Okay, we're going to have a break. It's the last break. It's a short break. We've got a panel and one speaker after this to bring us home. So